Hey guys, it's Ryan here with Hobbies Man. Once again, today we're going to be doing another book review. We're going to be looking at Lone Wolf, which is the first novella in the Primogenitor Saga by Robert M. Kerns. And I'm not really going to bother with the usual kind of system that I have for reviewing because this is so short that I really don't think I need that structure, right? So let's jump into what the story is about. And so this is basically a short story detailing the early life of Carleen. And not really even her early life, just a specific moment in time when she was about 15 years old, which is about 60 to 70 years before the beginning of the story, right? So it basically details Carleen's first shift and what it takes for her to do so. And so we get to learn that Carleen is part of a rather large wolf shifter family. She has 3 older brothers. She has 1 older sister, and she's kind of the youngest of the group. And she's also the only one that has not been able to shift yet, even though she's also quite old in terms of like shifting children, right? So she's about 15 years old. She's basically an adult, and she still has not been able to shift. And so there is an issue here. There is kind of a stigma associated with this, and of course she is bullied by this. However, she is a very strong girl, and so she doesn't really let this bother her. And she happens to be in love with the town's runt shifter. Runt as in like the runt of the litter, not like a shifter that turns into a runt, whatever that might be. And his name is Tommy Jacobs, and she's in love with him because she enjoys his soft and gentleness compared to the rough and tumble of every other shifter kid that she knows, right? And so they kind of deal with these issues together. Tommy is bullied because he's a runt, and she is bullied because she can't shift. And so they develop a close friendship, a close bond, and we get to see that Carleen manages to make a connection with her inner wolf spirit or whatever. And this is done through meditation. We get to see her first moments with the inner wolf. And then we kind of go through this kind of really horrible scene where Tommy ends up dying in such a way that makes Carleen so angry and so upset with her shifter community that she shifts. She goes berserk, kills a bunch of people, and then steps away from the society and becomes kind of a lone wolf, a loner, someone that is away and outside of shifter society. And so this basically is the only bit of story that we need in terms of Carleen's background, because basically leads right into her introduction in the first book, right? And it brings in a lot of context for book 2. So I actually really thought that this was a very well thought out novel or novella. I liked the length of it. I thought it was just the right amount to tell the story, and I liked everything about it, honestly. I think it was very good. In terms of like the characters here, we just have Carleen and Tommy, and Tommy's not really that important, and Jeffreds, I guess, and Carrington, and some school bullies. And honestly, the most important kind of aspects here, besides the character development of Carleen, is of course this interesting kind of aspect that it introduces for world building, right? So we get introduced to a new shifter town, not Precious, a different one. We get introduced to the primogenitor theory, but we don't really know what it is exactly. We just know that Alistair's brother, I think, is quite connected to the study of this, but it is not something that is taken seriously because shifters are rather barbaric by modern people standards, and don't really put too much stock in that stuff. And so no one really listens to this guy, right? And I'm not honestly really sure how it works. How do animal forms evolve down? Like, technically, a wolf is like more evolved than a dire wolf, but not really, because a dire wolf is technically a stronger being than a normal gray wolf, right? However, the reason why it is extinct is because of its environment and because of its specialization not being useful to it anymore, and so the species dies, right? I don't know if that's actually how the direwolf died, but that is kind of like the standard accepted reasons why a species might die out, right? Of course, there's overhunting, but I don't know that direwolves were ever hunted by people, right? So how does a society of magic shifting people evolve alongside the actual animals, right? So like, I don't mean like how did a human become a shifter. I mean like, why are the shifter forms like connected to what is currently available in the wild, right? So why are they why did they not maintain their older versions as they continue to go through the world, and why did they end up kind of just becoming wolves? And how does that seem? How does that look when you're seeing it over generations, right? Did people just like die off with the direwolves? Anyone that could transform into a direwolf died at the same time as them, and then random people elsewhere started to turn into normal wolves, and then they became the main, you know, canine shifters, or what does that look like? Now, it is not an important aspect of the story, but it is one that I think is kind of cool, and I think that I really hope that Robert explores it, because I think it's quite interesting, right? Because humans kind of were evolving up, right, to whatever we are now, which is a much better life form than previously, but their animal forms were evolving down into a less like a much better specialized animal to the modern environment, but a much less strong one than before, right? And so how does that work? Why is that? Is it like a perception thing? Like, oh, we don't see what these animals look like anymore, so there is no reason for us to shape ourselves into those animals, and then only certain people happen to have like a genetic issue with them, or a genetic situation that allows them to go back to their older roots, or what? Like, I just want to know what that is. And it seems like the shifter form evolves alongside the actual evolution of an animal, but it doesn't really make sense, because then that would mean that the last version of the shifter would be the last version of whatever lineage of animal they follow, right? And so a direwolf is not actually connected to a gray wolf, except for very far back in terms of like ancestry. And so it wouldn't make sense for the direwolf shifters to turn into gray wolf shifters, right? I realize that none of that is making sense, but I'm curious to see how that is, you know, fixed, how that issue is, you know, kind of dealt with by Robert M. Kerns, because I think it'd be really, really good. Again, no artwork, and my rating for this is a 4 out of 5. I was expecting something slightly different from Carlene's story. I wasn't expecting her origin story. I was expecting somewhere like in the middle of her loner life. And so kind of my rating is suffers a little bit because of that. But also it's because it's not super exciting. It is quite good, and it is something that allowed me to think a lot about the series, but it is not necessarily super exciting to read. So that's why it's a 4 out of 5 instead of a 5 out of 5. But it is not significantly worse than anything I've ever read. It's actually still kind of quite one of the better books that I've read this year, besides Wheel of Time, right? So yeah, overall, good stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And you can get this book for free by joining Robert M. Kerns, what's it called? His mail list, right? So you get the book on the second mail that he sends you, or the second email that he sends you, I think, and you download it, and then that's it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys later.